evening we have Swami Svatmavidyananda joining us again from India. Om Namah Shivaya. Welcome, Swamiji. And last night on Christmas Eve, she gave a very, very beautiful talk about relating the teachings of Jesus and the Bible to Vedanta. And this evening, she's going to speak to us about the Yoga of Objectivity. So, Om Namah Shivaya, Swamiji. Welcome. Thank you.
Thank you very much once again. I hope you can hear me. There is a glitch on the computer, so I have connected on the phone. Are you able to hear me?
Very nicely, Swamiji.
Oh, wonderful. I'm very happy about that. Thank God. So, I just had one question before I begin. How much time do I have?
You have 45 minutes.
Oh, perfect. Thank you for clarifying that, Swamiji.
We will also let you run over if you like. We don't mind.
Well, let us keep it how it is, and so we will see how it goes. Om Sahana Bhavatu Sahanau Bhunaktu Sahaviryam Karavavahai Tejasvinavadhitamastu ma vidvishavahai. Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Namaste to everyone. Om Namah Shivaya. I'm very happy to be with all of you again today, and Merry Christmas to all, and everything that this holy season and the close of this year represents in various traditions. Today I want to share some thoughts about the yoga of objectivity. What kind of what kind of an asana is the yoga of objectivity? What does this entail? It is an attitudinal asana at best. It is a way of being in the world that where one is not affected by whatever is happening around oneself, within oneself. This is what the whole thing is. This is what objectivity means. And there are some misapprehensions about this objectivity. Some myths that we have to look into before we get started on the topic itself. Over time, these myths become reality because we start believing in these kinds of myths. And the first myth is that objectivity is aloofness. And in fact, this is a charge that has been wrongly leveled against Vedanta and everybody who practices Vedanta. Vedantins, the one who is in Vedanta, is a Vedantin. Okay. So all the Vedantins and everybody, this is a charge that is put because people don't know. The study of Vedanta, the study of the knowledge of the self that reveals one to be one with the whole, there is an allegation that it makes one aloof. In other words, vairagya, dispassion, is by the very translation, we see the word dispassion and assume it is aloofness. So somebody is crying. I say it is mithya, it is after all a deluded reality. The only reality that I have to focus on is that I am one with Ishvara, one with the Lord. So one with the goddess, one with everything. So really, a crying person on the roadside, somebody in poverty, somebody in pain, doesn't make any difference. This is one charge that is leveled. And it's unfortunately the myth, this myth is so much internalized that many Vedantins start to believe it about themselves and think that in order to be a good Vedanta practitioner, student, teacher, whatever, one has to become aloof. One has to have a persona of aloofness. Because I'm not supposed to be reactive and I'm supposed to be just stoic. For everything I have this samatvam yoga uchyate. For everything I have this kind of a face. Swamiji, you have won the lottery. It makes no difference. In other words, it makes no difference. I have the same face. Swamiji, your ashram got burned down. That's not the idea. It's not the idea that all the teachers of Vedanta and the practitioners of Vedanta have to have no joy in life, no sorrow, no joy. Just because the Bhagavad Gita says Harsha Shokau Jahati, gives up sorrow and joy, we are not talking of, we are talking of the alternating cycles of being trapped in agonizing and ecstatic situations and reacting like a yo-yo. That's what we are talking about. We are not talking about giving up the joy of one's being or responding to situations appropriately, responding to someone else's pain, responding to somebody else. That is not what objectivity is about. And more on that a little bit later, but this is the one myth that we are going to look at. But first we have to dismiss this myth that objectivity means some kind of an aloofness, a don't care attitude. That's not what it is. That is not what objectivity is. And the other charge that is leveled against the Vedanta and its practitioners is that we as a group are a very selfish group of people. Why? Because we are only interested in our own liberation. We are not interested in the liberation of everyone else. If you have self-knowledge and you have moksha, it doesn't matter, no problem. And what about other people? Oh, let them enjoy mocha from Starbucks. I have moksha, that's what I care about. And so Vedanta is seen as a very selfish pursuit where there is no room of inclusivity. That is, part A of the next charge, the second charge, of aloofness. This aloofness makes one be selfish. And in other words, I am interested only in my own liberation and not in your liberation or anybody else's liberation in the world. And so part B of this allegation is that Vedanta has nothing to do with social transformation because it's all about the individual. It's all about the I. It is all about the self. This is another misconception. Because, in one sentence, what we have to see is that this self that the Vedanta talks about is everything. It includes, starting with one's own body, mind, sense complex, it includes the five elements, it includes the entire universe. That is the self that the Vedanta is talking about. That is the self which is under discussion. That is the self that one is told to abide in. How can it leave anything out? How can it leave anything out? Who can it leave out? What can it leave out when the self that is unfolded by Vedanta is everything? Nothing is left out. This is something to remember. This is something to understand. So we have to see this. We have to see the beauty in this. We have to see the beautiful. What is that? The message that the uh, the divide, the so-called divide between individual and social transformation is somewhat contrived. Number one. And just because one has this knowledge that is contingent upon dispassion or rising above one's raga and dvesha, one's passionate reactions to the universe and one's unmanageable desires, like we talked about yesterday. That does not mean that one is aloof, that there is no compassion. So the dispassion merely is a step to compassion. That is what we have to see. Vairagya or dispassion that is described is a step. So, what is this objectivity after all? And how are we going to think about it? To see this, we have to look at the concept of the opposite, subjectivity. Subjectivity, a condition centered on the subject, which is I. Subjectivity, some kind of a partial drishti, a partial view of the situation at hand based on my own thinking. And we are very familiar with the concept of wearing colored glasses. And the Upanishads, the holy texts say that everybody wears colored glasses until one gets to know the truth of the universe, which is the truth of the self, which is the truth of the Lord, the source of the universe. The colored glasses will not drop, and the colored glasses vitiate both my view of the universe and my experience of the universe. What are these colored glasses? What are they made up of? The coloring or the coloration is the veil of Maya or the Atma Ajnanam Avarana, the veil of Maya in the form of self-ignorance. And self-ignorance has two components. We should unpack self-ignorance. Self-ignorance has two components, one which is general to all beings, and one component, one aspect which is specific to human beings. And it is unfortunately the second component that causes problems in life, not the first one. The first one, which is common to all beings, the first component of self ignorance is what? I don't know I am the Lord. I don't know I'm one with everything. I don't know that. You don't know that. Animals also don't know that. The dog doesn't know that its name is misspelled. Actually, it should be God, not Dog. It doesn't know. But it seems to be happier. It seems to be happier than all the human beings combined, as long as it's not beaten or abused, as long as it's allowed beaten or eaten, I should say, because such things happen. And it should neither be beaten nor be eaten. It should be allowed to live a life. It should be allowed to reproduce, have babies, and do whatever it wants. And then it dies away. It doesn't seem to be unhappy. It doesn't seem to have a complex centered on the self. I am not a good mother. No dog thinks that. I should provide more bones for my puppies and their puppies and their puppies. No dog thinks like this. And neither is a dog worried about getting a university degree. I should get a degree because then I'll become somebody. There is no becoming happening. Nor is a dog interested in its pedigree. I come from a long line of Brahmin dogs. It doesn't, here is my certificate. The certificate is for the owner, not for the dog. The dog could care less. If you show the dog the certificate, oh, you won the dog show because of your pedigree. What will it do to the certificate is anybody's guess. It will do swaha to the certificate. It will assimilate the certificate. It will eat it up. It's not going to put frame it in glass and laminate it or something and keep it on the wall. No, it could care less because it doesn't have that second component of Atma Ajnanam, self-ignorance, which translates as having wrong ideas, internalizing wrong ideas about the self. It does have the first component of Atma Ajnanam. It doesn't know itself, yes. Self ignorance has two components. Component number one, you don't know yourself, but that doesn't cause problems. That is not the cause of samsara. The cause of samsara is something which we have to look for additionally, which is only specific to human beings, because a human being has free will, has a well developed free will, which makes one free enough to come to wrong conclusions about the truth of oneself. First problem, I don't know myself, and therefore I take myself to be what I am not, and I don't take myself to be the Satchidananda Atma which I am. This is the cause of subjectivity. This is what makes those glasses colored. It vitiates my view of the universe. It vitiates my actions. It vitiates the ways in which I respond. And the sum total of all this is what is called samsara, some sorrow or the other. And samsari is a person who is always very, very sorry about something or the other. A person filled with self-pity, a person filled with some kind of a wrong notions about the self. So where do these wrong notions about the self arise? Well, there is a setup. It is already a setup because I don't know who I am. That is the basis of this setup. The adhisthana, the truth of the self, is not known. And so I am free to project whatever I want on this adhisthana, on the source, because the source is not fully known. If the source was totally unknown, then there would not be any problem at all. If the source is unknown, then there is no problem. For example, an unknown rope that you don't see in the dark as you are walking cannot be mistaken for a snake, right? You don't see the rope at all. So how can you have aropa or a superimposition, as it were, on the snake and mistake it for something else that it is not? You cannot. And likewise, a known rope cannot be cause of fear, because you don't mistake it for a snake. You say it is a rope. How can it be a snake? I see very clearly that it is a rope. Yes, it is a very cleverly arranged with three bends so that it looks like a snake, but it is not a snake. You are able to say that. So an unknown adhisthana, standing for the rope here, so an unknown source cannot be the cause of problems. Like in the animals, an unknown self is not the cause of problems. Similarly, a known self is not the cause of problems. I know myself to be Ishvara, okay? Chapter closed, case closed, nothing more to talk about. But it's the in between that is the place of intrigue, which is both a blessing and a curse, because it is not that the I is totally unknown. Because when I ask you the question, which I do each time I come to the yoga farm, and this time I'm here virtually, so I'm virtually asking you the question, pun intended, are you here? And then you may look at one another, but what is the response? Yes, I'm here. How do you know? I know without reading a book that I am, that I exist. That I exist is evident to me. In fact, the existence of everything becomes evident to me because I am self-existent. The I, the self, defined by Vedanta, is a self-evident self. This is what we mean by a self-evident existence. This is what it is. And a self-evident self. This is how it is because I know I am. Please don't ask the next question, who am I? Who are you? Don't ask, because then I'll have to say, how much time do you have? I am so and so. I was neglected by my family. I was thrown out by them. I had bad childhood. I had a difficult youth. Now I'm having a hard old age. and nobody loves me, nobody cares, nobody has given me anything I want, and whatever I want I don't get, whatever I don't want I get two helpings of, and my whole life is spent getting rid of what I don't want and trying to have what I want. This is everybody's life story until one encounters spirituality, until one encounters yoga, which leads to the yoga of objectivity. This is a very subjective life story. It's a subjective autobiography. And the everyone's collective autobiography is the same. Maybe the chapters differ, maybe the plot differs a little bit. Somebody was born in India, somebody was born in Europe, somebody was born in America. Maybe the chapters differ, the specificities of the situation differ, but it is everybody's life story. And this collective autobiography has a title. What is the title? Why me? That is the title of this life story. Why me? Why not somebody else? And then, of course, 7 billion people in the universe are asking the same question at the same time. Why me? Why not the neighbor? And I'm such a dharmic person. I'm doing everything right. I'm following the correct things that need to be followed. And yet, the slings and arrows of outrageous fortune are out to get to me. They're out to get me. Why me? This why me is a very interesting, what should I say, chorus. In the Hindustani music, we have this tanpura, which sets the shruti, which sets the melody of that particular raga, which the vocalist or the instrumentalist is going to perform for the consort. And so the person who holding the tanpura, keeps that refrain going. So this tanpura is set to the melody, the raga that is going to be played, the raga that is going to be sung, from which the person can take off and improvise. But the main notes are there. The main notes which define the raga are tuned into the tanpura. And so the main notes that define the raga of this jiva's life, why me, why me, why me, that is one string of the tanpura. The second string is I want, I want, I want. The third string is I lack, I lack, I lack. Fourth string, this is hopeless, this is hopeless, this is hopeless. Something is wrong with me, something is not right with me. I'm an idiot, I'm sad, I'm afraid. This is the refrain. This is the subjective refrain which becomes the backdrop to leading one's life. How sad. How can you come out of this if this is the refrain? That tanpura, this particular tanpura is a useless tanpura. This has to be stopped, because this is a subjective chorus. It's a subjective refrain of the stories of pain, sorrow, fear, etc., which are all believed to be real, because that which is real is not understood. That which is real, you have a glimpse of every now and then. Every now and then you find yourself commanding a certain compassion, commanding a certain space, being accommodative, being forgiving, being loving. Despite the difficulties, you find yourself doing that once in a while, but at best it is elusive and spontaneous. It doesn't hold. In sleep again, one is full of ananda, full of limitless joy. And then upon waking, it's like samsara yawns and wakes up with you. Samsara stretches along with you and wakes up. And this is the subjectivity. One carries it everywhere simply because one has mistaken oneself for what one is not, and one has not taken oneself to be what one is. And this is the crux of both individual and social transformation. because the individual I, unfolded by the Shastra, by the teachings of the Upanishad, includes everybody, includes everything in the universe, includes all that moves and all that does not, includes all that is sentient and insentient, includes everything, including the one who is complaining, I want, I want, I want, I don't have, why me, the title of various autobiographies. So, therefore, the message of the Upanishad for a person afflicted by subjectivity becomes a very, very welcome message. If somebody tells you, I don't like the Upanishad, I don't care for them, that means they have not understood what the purport of the Upanishad is, what the purport of the Upanishads are. They have not understood. They have not understood that the collective message of all the Upanishads is to remove the sorrow centered on the mistaken notions surrounding the I. That's why they can say, I don't care for the teaching of the Upanishads. If anybody is cognizant about one's own pain and sorrow and has an idea about this subjectivity, then immediately one welcomes the message of the Upanishad. How can one not? It is very uplifting. You feel like soaring when you hear you are the whole. In fact, there is nothing wrong with you. No, but what about all the wrong things I have done? Well, you did them because you didn't know any better. And whatever you did, you are, you are cleansed of that, because the essential nature of you is free of papa, free of punya, free of merits and demerits accruing to those actions, because the truth of you is the witness of the actions rather than the actor itself. This is a very welcome message. It's a message of total, you know, absolute freedom from all kinds of wrongdoings or that have been internalized over births. And even in the course of one life, so many regrets, so many fears, so many tears, there is guilt, there is hurt. I suffer from my own omissions and commissions as an individual, and then one suffers from other people's omissions and commissions, which cause hurt, which cause pain. These are the colored glasses that drop with the study of a committed exposure to the knowledge of Vedanta. These are the scales, the subjective scales that drop. And this is what it takes to come out of the subjectivity. And as one is doing that, we will discuss some practical tips to address this subjectivity, to, to develop some kind of a self-love and address some practical tips by way of addressing this subjectivity. What I can do to help myself, even as I'm assimilating the knowledge of the Upanishads. The knowledge of the Upanishads are the primary source for removing the glasses of subjectivity that makes it appear as though the universe is out to get me, that makes it seem that I am a no good person in the world, that makes me seem hopeless, that makes me appear in a bad light all the time, that tells me erroneously, that broadcasts the wrong message, that I am not enough, that I don't have enough, that there is a lack centered on the self. So the vision of the Upanishads has to be studied, appreciated, not on just suddenly one time, all the time. One has to connect to this message, and one has to let the message wash over years and lifetimes of wrong messages. This is what is needs to happen. And as that is happening, one can help oneself by looking at the roots of the subjectivity in one's own life. And what are the roots of the subjectivity? The roots of the subjectivity are unmanageable desires, binding desires. Bhagavan Krishna says, Sarvesham buddhau ragadveshau vyavasthitau. These kinds of desires are there in everyone's hearts. The binding desires, desires which exert, binding desires means what? Desires that exert a pressure on you for immediate fulfillment, even at the cost of the means. The ends justify the means. Those kinds of desires that pressure you to cut corners, that pressure you to give up dharma, that pressure you to do all kinds of things that you should not be doing. Those binding desires are the cause of subjectivity. And they are there in every heart, thank God. It's not just me, it's a psychological order of the universe. And this psychological order is a manifestation of Lord Krishna, not a mandate of God. It's the very manifestation of Lord Krishna. And Lord Krishna is in the form of these untractable desires. But then Lord Krishna is also in the form of the free will, which allows me to take care of these desires. That's what the second line says. Tayorna vashamagachet tauhi asya paripanthinau. Don't come under, everybody's heart is full of raga and dveshas. But that doesn't mean, oh Arjuna, Lord Krishna says, that you should come under their spell. Shaknoti ihaiva yassodhum praksharira vimokshanat kamakrodhodbhavam vegham sabuddhiman naraha. So that person is seen as wise, the one who is able to let go of the pressures released by the desires to fulfill themselves. The one who is able to manage the pressures which the desires unleash, that is the person who is wise. In the opinion of Lord Krishna, according to Lord Krishna, the wise one is the person who has ragadvesha, because ragadvesha is common to everybody. But the one who doesn't come under their spell, and the one who is able to let go of the pressure by the desires, that is the wise person. So how do I let go of the pressures which are mounted by urgent desires seeking instant gratification? To that we meander over again to the 5th chapter. We graze the grasses of the 5th chapter of the Bhagavad Gita, the verse that says, Ye hi samsparshaja bhogaha, Ye hi samsparshaja bhogaha, dukkayonayah evate, adyantavantah kaunteya, nateshu ramate buddha. So, Buddha, the wise person, does not revel in what? Samsparshajaha bhogaha, in objects of enjoyment, which can be contacted by the senses. You can enjoy them all right, but you don't dwell in them. When you don't dwell in them, the only other option is to dwell in yourself. So from leaning on and dwelling upon the things in the universe to keep you in a good mood, to keep you entertained, you learn to dwell in yourself. Why? Because these objects of consumption that are there everywhere to see, that are there all around to access, Dukkha evate. They are the birth canals. The yoni means birth canal, okay? They are the birth canals of sorrow. If you want to lead a why me, why am I targeted, oh no, why me life, please keep on being attracted to and completely in the spell of all kinds of objects of enjoyment that surround you. But what is the connection between objects of enjoyment and sorrow? They seem to be they seem to be completely dichotomous with one another. They're opposite. So objects of enjoyment should give me joy. Why do they give me sorrow? That is also talked about in the next line of this verse. Adyantavantaha. He Kaunteya, O son of Kunti, Adyantavantaha, they are with beginning and with end. Adyavantaha, Antavantaha, they. So they have a beginning and they have an end. That is why they don't give joy. Because the joy that you seek, the limitless ananda, the joy that you seek is centered only on you. That source. That source alone is joyful, which is you, which is neither has a beginning nor has an end. And all the objects that surround you, that shine as though the in borrowed light of the Atma, they're all an extension of this I. But then you fall in love not with the I, but you fall in love with the name and form. The name and form perish, leaving you sorrowful. The more the contact with the objects, the more the contact with things, situations, events, and people to keep you propped up and to keep you happy. The ironically speaking, the more sorrowful you become, the more sadder you become, the more you rely on everything with a beginning and an end. Because what you want is that which is without a beginning and an end. But how can you say that that's what I want? Because it is very obvious. Because if I ask you, what do you want? You may well answer, I want to be happy. Then I ask you the next question, how long, my dears, you want to be happy? Nobody in their right mind will say, please keep me happy for 5 minutes, it's enough. Let me experience happiness for half a day, it's enough. No, let me have happiness during the weekend. It's enough. No, it is never enough. How long you want to be happy? Forever. So that forever is transposed, is superimposed upon the name and forms that one falls in love with because one doesn't know better. One is in love with forever, and the only thing that is forever is you. And then, not knowing that, one falls in love with the reflection, like Narcissus, the Greek god. He fell in love with his reflection and kept on trying to embrace it. Each time he tried to embrace it, the water ripples would disrupt the reflection and he felt it was gone. And again, the water would form the reflection, and then he just pined and starved to death like this. In fact, that ancient Greek story is the story of all jivas. Very interesting. I find that story very interesting. So, in a way, one like Narcissus, this Greek entity, is in love with oneself, but with a wrong understanding of the self. The self that is the body, the self that is confused to be the mind, the self that is confused to be all the things that one possesses, the self that lives in the significant other, the self that is, given away to the family, to the children, all these things. All that is the self, yes, but the self is not any one of them. The self transcends all of this. And so, falling in love with the self is okay, but that correct understanding of the self should be there. Without the correct understanding of the self, falling in love with the self, the self of name and form, is a travesty, because the name and form comes to an end and the self wants the forever. In fact, nobody wants name and form. You want forever. So somebody says, somebody comes to, in India, this is a common occurrence. Somebody comes to me, or somebody comes to their parents and says, I got a job finally. I was unemployed for so long. I got a job. And you know what the parents ask? Is it a permanent job? That itself is a clue. The job can go or come. That is not, they're not interested in the job. The permanence here is what is sought. Marriage, another example. The person getting married for the fifth time writes patiently in the marriage vows and recites the vows. What are the marriage vows? Forever we shall stay together. Forever. What about the other 4 times? That was not forever. Shh, don't talk about the other 4 times. This time it's the real thing. This time it's forever. Same thing. And you want the children to live on forever. You want your contribution to last forever. What you want is forever. And that forever is you. That forever is not outside of you. And this is what, this is really at the crux of this understanding, that subjectivity comes from transposition of the forever on all the things that surround you, which are not forever, which are never forever. And then there is also a connection in the human mind between the forever and, and to gain the forever, you have to gain the real thing. There is a connection. This time it's real, meaning it will last. This time it is forever. I want the real thing. I don't want the unreal thing. Even in our everyday empirical parlance, we talk like this. And the capitalist, what is that, companies make use of our penchant and our internal quest for the real thing. So what is the real thing? Coca-Cola declares the real thing. Coca-Cola is not the real thing. Similarly, Apple has made everything start with I. iPhone, iMac, iPod, iPad. And if I don't get iPad, I'm sad, I'm mad. This is what the whole thing is. And it takes a discerning mind. I'll take a few minutes, as Swamiji has generously offered. I'll conclude in a few minutes because I don't want to leave in the middle of the thought. So I'll take a few more minutes, to come to the conclusion. And so the forever and the real thing are very closely connected, are intertwined. And it behooves us to have the viveka, the discrimination, to see that the more I rely on all the objects of consumption for getting this forever, the more I will be doomed to a life of fear and misery. Fear that the forever is going to, my concept of forever, my subjective concept of forever is going to go away, and misery because I don't know how to bring it back. Then what? Then I fall in love with one more thing, one more name, one more form, and rely on it for feeling good about myself. This is not the definition of a wise individual. In the Bhagavad Gita, the wise individual is described as Prajahati yada kaman sarvan partha manogatan, sarvan kaman manogatan yada prajahati. Atmani eva तुष्टः आत्मनि एव तुष्टः आत्मना तुष्टः स्थितप्रज्ञः तदा उच्यते. The person is said to be completely unshakable in this knowledge when two conditions are met. First condition, the person has a lot of fancies coming in the heart, arising in the mind. What is the difference between the jnani, the person of knowledge, and the ajnani, the ignorant person? There's only one difference. The jnani is able to just drop the fancies as they arise in the mind with the tool of discrimination, viveka, and by discerning which desires to follow and then deciding this is a useless desire, just give it up. And the jnani gives up all desires spontaneously because the jnani is filled with the truth of oneself, Purna, and therefore is not seeking outside approval or outside sources of ecstasy, joy, and the forever is understood as the truth of oneself. That is the first condition. And then the second condition is Atmani eva Atmana Tushtaha, the one who is happy doing nothing, being oneself. The one whose happiness is not dependent on anything else, including the phone, the internet, etc. The one who is just happy being, without any source of entertainment, the one who is happy. This is what is the definition of objectivity. Such an individual is wise because the transposition, the wrong projection of happiness from the Atma centered on the I, is not being made onto objects, people, events, and situations. And one is totally independent of that. One is totally independent of that. And so, this is how to practice uh, objectivity in one's everyday life. Two things we can do. One is practice delayed gratification. From instant gratification to delayed gratification, please follow. If I want something right now, tell you, if you want something right now, I have to have it yesterday. Tell yourself, I'll have it, but I'll have it tomorrow, and then tomorrow, and tomorrow. And we know one thing about tomorrow. What do we know about tomorrow? Tomorrow never comes. The desire resolves because the rise of the desire is due to some sorrow, some mistaken subjectivity, and it resolves. You delay the gratification, already you have a mastery over the desire. You're well on your way to be a Swami wannabe. This is a, everybody is a Swami wannabe. Swami means a master of the kingdom of the self. And so we practice doing this first by delaying the gratification. That is a very practical way to do this. And this is how to do the let go of the desire slowly. You change the channel, you stop doing something. When the desire strikes, you go for a walk instead, you do something else. You sublate that desire. And that is also another effective way of dealing with nonsensical dead end desires that leave one deadened to the prospect of this knowledge. That is what one has to do. This is something which is very, very important. And as one grows, the pertinence of this knowledge for social transformation, you see right in front of your eyes. Because the more the scales of subjectivity drop, the greater is the number of the people you can help, just because the compassion oozes out of you. You rain compassion indiscriminately. You have more energy. You have less, feeling of meanness and minus. This is what is the key to social transformation. Social transformation doesn't come from a place of passion, cannot come from a place of passion, because it is a place of subjectivity where one is mired in the outcome. Here, the outcome is not at all the part of the process. It is social transformation because you don't care about the outcome. The outcome is in the hands of Bhagavan. You have some hands and legs, and here is a person in distress, and finally there is room to see through the distress. What does this person need? Is this some kind of a rehearsing distress? In which case, the compassion has to just be a prayer and then move on, because the person is mired in their distress and not ready perhaps to come out. Or is it some kind of a help I can do? Perhaps some money, perhaps some time. Or the best form of compassion is to teach, if you know this, to share this knowledge with others, to share some practices of self-love like asana, pranayama. All this, gives self-love and has a very important what should I say, preparatory steps to letting go of the subjectivity. So the objectivity is connected to social transformation, thereby dismissing the myth that Vedanta is a selfish pursuit. It's not a selfish pursuit if you know what kind of a self we are talking about. And the self that we are talking about is that which is free, which is whole, which is self-evident, which is the only thing that is in existence, and which is beloved by all, which is coveted by all. And it is a very interesting thing to pursue. It's a paradox because you already are who you seek to be. So the seeker, the sought, and the journey of the seeking is all one. The seeker is non-separate from the sought. The sought is non-separate from the means, and the means are non-separate from the end. It is just all glorious. And the more we contemplate upon this, the greater is the objectivity. The greater and the more objective one is, the world becomes a revya pujya, a worshipful place, a happy place, because one is in tandem with Ishvara's objectivity. You see the creation for what it is, rather than the fact, rather than the wrong assimilation of what you think it is. You see that the creation, the Ishvara's universe, is not out to get you. It simply is. And in seeing that, you can be at peace with yourself. And even if one person is at peace with oneself, the ripple effect is so much that that person influences a host of other people around. It is just so beautiful. And on this festive and holy day, I wish for all of you to grow, for everyone, for all of us. Let there be more objectivity and less subjectivity. What does that mean? Let the Lord pervade my heart. Let Ishvara pervade my mind and heart. More Ishvara, more objectivity. Let there be, this is my prayer for all of us, let there be, O Lord, more of you and less of me in me as me. Thank you very much. Om Tat Sat.
Swaminiji. Thank you very much. It's very nice having you for both 2 nights in a row. We feel very, very blessed.
Privilege is mine.
So we will again, Merry Christmas to everybody, and thank you again to Swamini Svatmavidyananda. And we'll finish with the final prayers and the arati. Om Jayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshyamamritat Om Jayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivaranam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshyamamritat Om Jayambakam Yajamahe Sugandhim Pushtivardanam Urvarukamiva Bandhanan Mrityor Mukshyamamritat Om Sarvesham Swasti Bhavatu Sarvesham Shantir Bhavatu Sarvesham Purnam Bhavatu Sarvesham Mangalam Bhavatu Sarve Bhavantu Sukhinaha Sarve Santurihamya Sarve Bhadrani Pashantu Makache Dukabhag Bhavet Asatoma Satgameha Tamasoma Jyotirgameha Mrityor Mamritam Gameha Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamadachate Purnasya Purnamadaya Purnamevavashishate Om Shanti Shanti Shanti. Adorable Lord of mercy and love, salutations and prostrations unto thee. Thou art omnipresent, omnipotent, and omniscient. Thou art Satchidananda. Thou art existence, knowledge, and bliss absolute. Thou art the indweller of all beings. Grant us an understanding heart, equal vision, balanced mind, faith, devotion, and wisdom. Grant us inner spiritual strength to resist temptation and control the mind. Free us from egoism, lust, anger, greed, hatred, and jealousy. Fill our hearts with the divine virtues. Let us behold thee in all these names and forms. Let us serve thee in all these names and forms. Let us ever remember thee. Let us ever sing thy glories. Let thy name be ever on our lips. Let us abide in thee forever and ever. Om Bolo Satguru Shivananda Maharaj Ki, Swami Vishnu Devananda Maharaj Ki. Hari Om Tat Sat. Please stand for the arati. Jai Jai Arati Vinayaka Vinayaka Shri Ganesha. Jai Jai Arati Subramanya Subramanya Kartikeya. Jai Jai Arati Venugopala Venugopala Venulola Papavidura Namanita Chora Jayarati Venkataramana Venkataramana Shankataharana Sita Rama Radeshama Jayarati Gauri Manohara Gauri Manohara Bhavani Shankara Ambasada Shiva Jai Jai Arati Rajana Jaishwari Rajana Jaishwari Tripura Sundari Mahalakshmi Mahasaraswati Mahakali Mahashakti Jai Jai Arati Anjaneya Anjaneya Hanumanta Jai Jai Arati Dattatreya Dattatreya Trimurti Avatara Jai Jai Arati Adijaya Adijaya Bhaskaraya Jai Jai Arati Saneshwaraya Saneshwaraya Bhaskaraya Jai Jai Arati Shankaracharya Shankaracharya Advaita Gurave Jai Jai Arati Sadgurunata Sadgurunata Shivananda Jai Jai Arati Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Vishnu Devananda Jai Jai Arati Agastya Munaye Agastya Munaye Shri Rama Priyaye Jai Jai Arati Ayappa Swamiye Ayappa Swamiye Dharma Shastrave Jai Jai Arati Jesus Gurave Moses Gurave Buddha Gurave Jai Jai Arati Mohammed Gurave Guru Nanak Gurave mamekam sharanam vraja. Aham tva sarvapapyo mokshe hishami masucha.
Okay, Om Namah Shivaya. Have a good night, everybody. And tomorrow morning we carry on. So the satsang tomorrow we have Pandit Samavadula, who will begin first of 3 sessions on the 108 names of Shiva and their meaning. So that will begin in the satsang tomorrow, and then he'll continue at 12 noon tomorrow. 2 o'clock we have Krishna Darshan again. He'll be speaking about the Saturn-Jupiter conjunction. So that'd be the 2 o'clock session, and then tomorrow night we have Naranjan Babu. Time management muhurtas. So this is another Jyotish topic as well. So. Okay, and then today is Friday, so on Sunday we have Swami Sarupananda, who is a senior disciple of Swami Vishnudevananda, and that will be a question and answer session coming up in the satsang. So please think about your questions. You can send your questions. We're typing in the email address where you can send your questions right now. And so please do send your questions to us for that satsang coming up. Okay, have a good night. Merry Christmas. Om Namah Shivaya. Thank you.